Good old Breezy. Welcome back. I know it's been a while. It was pretty crazy transitioning from the States to Berlin. Not because of the actual flight or anything, the actual travel, but because the state of mind in my like spiritual connection to myself and to life is definitely just so different from the US to Berlin. So it's wonderful being back in Berlin. I feel much more connected with myself, essentially. Um, yeah, it's been a while, so let's get right into it.
I got an excess of black bile, high irascibility, contemplating checking myself into facility, mental ability clearly affected,
Deep in the dumps, down and dejected.
I've been in low power mode, in low power mode, been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low. I've been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear.
I just saw her live, so let's get into music. All right, so the artist that I am choosing to feature today is Caxxianne. This is one of the most powerful, badass rappers in Berlin. Not like femme rappers in Berlin. One of the most badass in Berlin. Okay, Caxxianne is just like a powerhouse. I don't know how else to describe. And I came across Caxxianne like last year when we were doing Queer Mass at the Pop Culture Festival in Berlin. The organizer said, hey, it'd be really cool if you could include this artist. And I looked up what they had just put out, which is this song, God is We. And the video was so powerful. And it's like, God is you, God is me, God is definitely not a he. Like all this empowerment around in questioning around like beliefs in higher power. And I don't know, I think Caxxianne is so powerful because she is so spiritual, so aligned, so connected with her ancestry and her roots and her purpose. And so, yeah, I got to see her perform for the first time last Tuesday, at the Swag Jam, which was where I performed at the end of May. And it was so dope. It's so dope to have this weekly jam session at Bada House support hip hop acts, and having a band behind you as a rapper is a super special experience. It doesn't happen a lot, and it's just the best. It's just the best. So it was really great. And she has been so booked and busy this summer. She barely even had a voice. She didn't have a rehearsal, and she fucking slayed the gig. Like, still somehow slayed the gig. I have some photos from my phone, so I'm gonna post those along with the Patreon. She's definitely like, I feel like if you like me and what I'm doing, you would definitely fuck with Caxxianne, and I highly encourage following her on each and every platform there is. So feminist, so strong. The song that just really rocked the crowd and like got the people going was Capricorn. And so that's the song that I want to focus on this podcast. And I think it's fairly recent. Like, I think this comes from the hashtag Zodiac Volume 4 project EP, and it dropped mid-April of 2022. So this is some new shit. She performed it so comfortably. And yeah, and I loved her approach and her like steadiness, I guess, throughout the performance. For me, when I perform with the Swag Jam, I just get so excited and I just like end up screaming into the mic and like just jumping all around. She was able to like stay very poised. And I don't know, I think there's something to harnessing your voice and harnessing your energy. It's not to say she wasn't hype, but just really skilled performer. Yeah, and it was so dope. So, okay, so the hook of Capricorn is 100K in my bank account 2021, come 2022, I'm gonna get 1,000,000. And so she had the whole club, just screaming this at the top of their lungs. It was so fucking dope. So not only is Caxxianne a good, I think Caxxianne, like that, her name is Caxxianne. But then with the X's, I want to say Caxxianne. And it's like kind of like cash. I don't know. So you'll hear me say both. I'll have to ask her. So yeah. So she comes from Jamaica and had family members like very involved in the politics in the country, and in those family members where some of them were taken too soon, and she raps about that on her project Breaking Cycles, which I also strongly recommend. I need to put the Bandcamp link into. Side note, I think it's great when people buy music from Bandcamp. iTunes is great, but Bandcamp, most of the money just goes straight into the pocket of the artist, which is so rare. So I've probably mentioned this before, but wanted to remind you. But yeah, Breaking Cycles came out in 2020. And yeah, and last summer Caxxianne invited me to this tea party. It was like a Black empowerment, like healing session. So another really cool thing about this artist is she is such an entrepreneur and like understands branding and products. And so, and is passionate. And so she comes from Jamaica. They make tea there. And so she has this company called Brown Sugar Black Tea, and it's a Black owned tea company. I have sampled this tea, bought this tea. I'm gonna buy it again. Like, it's so good. It is so good. And they add all these little things like reusable cotton tea bags and little like cute little things. I just love the intention behind everything. I feel like Caxxianne is an artist who just in everything that she does, there's so much intention. You go to her link tree, for instance, and immediately the pop-up of like support anti-racism, I'm raising awareness, driving donations and sharing information in support of racial justice and equality. Will you join me? Like pops up. Such an activist. I think in a bio somewhere I saw she goes by peoplelutionist, like a revolutionist, a peoplelutionist, and I'm just obsessed. I don't know. It's like such an honor to kind of like be considered in the same sort of nook of Berlin hip hop as this artist. And she's so good in her bars, man. Like I don't know. In that Jamaican like bomba clap alien swag thing she's got going on. So good, so hype, so like connected to roots again, to spirituality. Just a badass artist. I think I just watched a video. I think it's a collaboration with a producer named DK. But the video, it's 420, like spelled out 420, and it features Caxxianne, and she just slays on it, and it's about weed, so it's awesome. Yeah, all my blessings and all my love to this artist. Definitely jump on the not bandwagon, but what do we call groups of fans these days? I don't know. Definitely jump onto the Caxxianne like train because it's going somewhere. So that's gonna wrap it up for music, and we're gonna move on to TV. Television. All right, welcome back. So we're in the TV section, and welcome back. You haven't really gone anywhere. So the TV show that I want to focus on today is called Legendary. And Legendary is a reality competition series on HBO Max. So we talked about Pose. I can't keep track of time anymore, but in one of the former episodes, imagine like Pose and the houses and the ballroom culture of the 70s, 80s that originated in New York. Imagine those balls in a modern day like reality competition series. So definitely along the lines of like a Queer Eye or a We're Here. No, not a Queer Eye. Sorry, not a Queer Eye. Definitely along the lines of like a RuPaul's Drag Race, but more niche and like definitely ballroom. So it was a little weird to see this because it's like, okay, slap a reality TV show kind of budget on it and all of that stuff. Like, do you still preserve the culture? But because of the host and one of the judges, they really hold it down. Okay, so the show is it's so interesting to me. This, to me, it was as if people who are out of the ballroom culture were like, ballroom culture, can we make money off of this as a reality TV series? But if you're bringing ballroom to the front, ballroom already influences so much without being honored or mentioned. So like my argument is that putting ballroom on like to the front of the mainstream via a competition reality series is great because the people who are getting paid from these shows and benefiting from the popularity and stuff are like people who are very, very systemically oppressed and marginalized in society. So my skepticism very quickly wore away, and I became a massive fan of the show. Now, I've only seen the first season, and it was one of these dramatic things where, like, I watched it almost all the way through, then the last episode is, like, when Corona hits. So it's always, like, really funny to me how whatever TV show it is, like, portrays Corona, coming in and affecting everything. Yeah, it was very just, I don't know. It's funny, like when you see these moments in TV shows and stuff, and like I still like go there emotionally. I'm like, oh my God, like that sense that we all went through, like where the rug was pulled out from under us. But even after only seeing one season of this show, I'm such a fan. So in ballroom, okay, if you don't know anything about like Pose or haven't listened to what I was saying before about Pose and ballroom culture, ballroom came out of a need because there are so many queer gay, lesbian, all of the queer community, especially of color, okay? Queers of color, once again, are so marginalized and shut out of society and othered and everything that there become very few options available to them. One of them is like sex work, for instance. Now, if just to be yourself, you feel like you have to do sex work, like there's a lot of heaviness in that. And ballroom was created as the beauteous side. Also, because many trans and non-binary and like different queer people are not as accepted in mainstream society, they don't have access to the same jobs that straight people do. So when it comes to especially the creative arts, such as, acting, modeling, like these sorts of things, I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of shows or roles, productions that there have been that would hire trans actors. You know what I'm saying? So it's ballroom emerged from that need to have queer POC like have somewhere to celebrate themselves and to act as if they're accepted in mainstream society. So it's pretty simple. There's categories, and you can walk the different categories and like win a trophy, maybe some money, and so what's also really cool is because I know ballroom in the houses like culture from what I've seen on TV, like from Pose and from Paris is Burning, but to see how it's manifested itself. So ballroom spread like crazy internationally, and ballroom happens everywhere, like here in Germany, in Sweden it's huge, in like these like kind of random places it's like big. One member of one of the houses from Tokyo said that it didn't exist there, and then they decided to like throw a ball, and now it's like getting huge. So ballroom has spread so much. Willie Ninja, one of the fathers of the movement, like when it comes to Vogue and ballroom, he had the House of Ninja, and he was all about like being international, and he was like very inspired by Asian culture. So he made it a point to really, really like go around the world and spread it around. And so it's so cool that ballroom exists now globally. And this TV show celebrates the shit out of that. Like, it's so cool. So essentially we have, how many houses are there? 8? There are 8 houses. And, in the beginning, they like introduce each of the houses. And of course, like, the stories, so often it's like, like a black person from a Christian family will be like, yeah, I came out at 14 and my mom threw me out. Sometimes we hear like, I was so nervous to come out, and then when I came out, like my mother accepted me. And it's like, oh my God, like it's so wild how that the reaction of the family to the status, the sexuality of their offspring is like such a deal breaker. So we get to hear from like all the house mothers and stuff. I think they kind of focus on them early on. So the different houses. So there's the House of Lanvin, which is like they're very bougie, I would say. The House of Gucci, the House of Gorgeous Gucci. So they're, into fashion and being beautiful. The House of Ninja. So this is the modern day House of Ninja. I think it's the LA chapter. and it's all cisgender women. So this is so unique because once again in ballroom, like it's more it's more focused on people of color, like queer people of color, and but these cisgendered women like loved the form and loved the community so much that there's a whole team of them. I don't know. I think it's so badass. Also that they're from Willie Ninja's house, um and they have many Asian members, and so it's like I don't know, it's like so full circle and like kind of cool. The House of Balmain is all, I think, all cisgendered black men. One of them is a drag queen, so doesn't identify as trans, but loves putting on heels and a wig. The House of Escada, which is like the softest, sort of like sweetest house and very like mixed in their personalities and talents. The House of Ebony, which was also wild to me. The house is led by it's called the House of Ebony from Ebony magazine, and the house is primarily black, but the house mother is white. She's a cisgendered white woman with children, and I was like, oh, that is so, like, normally I'm not a huge fan of white people up in like queer people of color spaces, but they know where they are, first of all. And the way that she spoke about being the leader of that house and stuff, it was like, damn, you know. And I know, like, from the journey that I've been on with my mom, like, I know not to count white people out completely. Like, I know that they have capacity to like decolonize themselves, but to see the House of Ebony be led by this white woman with kids, that was so cool to me. Like, that is so cool. And that these 4 other like black queers like really trust her. So that was great. The House of Saint Laurent and the House of West. That's each of the houses, and it's pretty, once again, like it's like any competition show. It's difficult because, you know, someone is going home all the time. So in the first episode, they just show who everyone is. The second episode, I think a house goes home. There's one episode where they don't eliminate anybody. It's just tough because every house is so talented, and you just want to see more and more and more and more. But the process is so cool. So essentially they have like the designers, the stylists, makeup artists at the ready for each of these houses, so they can kind of, for each ball, come to meet with the designer and say, I am thinking, you know, if it's a ball about like the sea or the ocean, they can be like, well, I'm thinking about doing this cat suit but with a mermaid tail that like rips off at the bottom, you know. Just, they can come with their ideas, and then very quickly the team can turn it into reality. So that is, it's just great to see this community with resources, because the creativity is off the charts. And something that I've been thinking about too is, I grew up in gymnastics. I was like the only black kid at the gymnastics gym, you know. Everything in gymnastics is about perfection. You know, you start from 10s and then you are deducting. So you're never getting 10s, ever, 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 ever. At best, you're getting like 8s or 9s, because you're never perfect. Like, so just that as the theme, as the basis of gymnastics is like, for my type A like personality, it would just, I didn't need that. So I love all the flips and the twists and the tumbles and the moves and the bars and all that stuff. But what kind of cultural cost is gymnastics taking? on us. And so when I look at ballroom and I see how much gymnastics there is in ballroom, but it's not just gymnastics, it's like gymnastics as one element of this deeper thing that has such a deep cultural significance. It's like, wow, 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 wow. And had these, had like some of these trans folks, for instance, like been able, like been accepted at the gymnastics gym, for instance, you would see these people at the Olympics. Like, they're so talented, like fucking Simone Biles looking type people out here on these floors. And the athletic ability is just wild. So I wanted to mention that, like, that I think gymnastics is whack. No, that ballroom is like, I think it's like a healthier, it's just a very healthy thing. Because the scoring in ballroom, it's like a saying is tens, tens, tens across the board that like you hear a lot. And so it's either like you slayed, or, your team wasn't all synchronized or all together, or it could have been better, that sort of thing. But the amount of tens that you get in ballroom is way more. So I love that. And it's about celebration because of the struggles of the folks who are participating in ballroom. So this is not ever to like tear down. And even when there are battles, like they are dance battles, like it is so fierce, but no one like lays a hand on each other. Or maybe they touch, but it's in a way that is dancing. It's not ever violent. And so, yeah, like, just know, like, this is a sport, okay? This is a sport. Ballroom is a sport. It is taken that seriously. There are trophies, like, and so, yeah, it may not have like a college scholarship or like, advertised on or shown on ESPN or whatever, but ballroom is like it's like the gayest sport there could ever be. So, there were some crazy moments throughout the season. I don't want to give anything away if you want to watch, because that's, I'm not just going to like, I'll talk about plots and things about other movies and films, but I'm not going to give away like who won the competition. But I'm dying to watch season 2 and season 3. It, again, is so fierce. It's so good. The judges, we have, oh God, I didn't even talk about. So Leomi Maldonado is a icon from the scene. She like has like whole movements credited to her in ballroom. And so having her there, having her as a judge, and you can tell, like, oh yeah, this is what I was saying before, like, Jamila Jamil is one of the executive producers. So I love Jamila Jamil, and I know she is a queer ally and everything. I was just kind of like, huh? Like, I can't picture her spending a lot of time at balls. And then Megan Thee Stallion was also a judge, and I know she hasn't been to balls. And then there's this fashionista guy, La Roche. I don't know if he had been to balls. So it felt like they could have had more people from the actual. Oh, and Deshaun Wesley is the host. He's amazing, and he is from the cult. Like, he's a Voguer. He and Leomi know what's up. But I know, because it's like reality TV and it's, viewership and all this stupid stuff, that they have to have like certain types of people who are going to draw the audiences. But yeah, for the most part, the judges were great, and Leomi really lays it down and really speaks to ballroom culture in certain moments. Once again, the creativity, the dance, the costumes, it all seemed to happen so fast to me. Like, I wanted to watch it in half speed and just like take everything in more. But there's this one epic battle between, is it the House of Ebony and the House of Lanvin? I should know, but it's these two. It's one's name is Shorty and one's name is Makayla, and they're they're in the bottom. Both of them are in the bottom, and they choose one of them to battle. And so the the ferocity and like the energy and the fire in this battle was so incredible. There's this moment where the one Makayla like crawls up the wall somehow in these heels. The flips and shit that they do in these heels is insane. Like, it's crazy. Legendary. It's a fantastic show. I know it's probably I looked up actually HBO Max, like where it reaches, and it's so funny because it does come to some European countries and some like really random, like, I don't know, it's like in Moldova or like very, very random places, but like somehow not in Germany. Something about contracts. But this show is so awesome. I'm including the battle between Makayla and Shorty in the and I just remembered there was a couple from the House of Ninja too that were like plays on gender. So I'm gonna include one of those two in the show notes. But yeah, even if you can't like watch the show, check out the battles, their performances. They're so good. And just like Drag Race has broken through and made so many opportunities for drag queens, it would be awesome to see ballroom break through to the point where they can have their own, like some of these individual people can sell out shows and get opportunities, because the talent is insane, the creativity is insane, the effort, the hard work, and yeah, it really deserves to be more celebrated. So here's to Legendary helping ballroom like really push queer POC forward, trans folks forward. Like, we're so ready for this. So there's been 3 seasons. They started in 2020, and then there's 2021 and 2022. So it's looking good. I mean, I think it's still going. So yeah, catch on while it's still early, while it's still, underground. And let's kick it off to the film section. Movies. Film. Okay, so I had a talk with my inner child, and it was like, what do you want? What's going to make you happy? And my inner child wanted to watch the movie Bring It On. So that's what we're talking about today. The movie Bring It On. It kind of pairs nicely with Legendary because, it's a movie. Bring It On is a movie about cheerleading, like competitive cheerleading. So I'm clearly in a very specific spot right now. And this movie came out in 2000, the year 2000. So it's almost a cultural study at this point. 22 years ago? Like, that's wild. I was 11, I guess, when this movie, 11 or 12 when this movie came out. And it was, fun fact, Gabrielle Union's 4th movie, following She's All That and 10 Things I Hate About You and some super heavy hitters. So go Gab, just straight out the gate, being, being incredible. And, she definitely was typecast as like kind of like the sassy black friend or whatever, but I love her role, Isis, in Bring It On. It is, I think, one of her best roles ever, and one of the best female characters ever portrayed on in film, for me. And so, yeah, as I said, when I was a youth, I was into the ballet, the tap dance, then gymnastics, and then I ended up switching to diving around this time, actually, when I was 11 or 12, because I was already having back problems in gymnastics. And I will never forget, they were like my coach, who I really loved, was like, "We had big plans for you, kid." And I was like, that was like the beginning of feeling like I'm letting people down constantly. But it was really it was really hard because I loved it. I really loved it. But when your body is, at 11 or 12, like already showing signs of wear, it's like, do we need to do this? No, we don't. So that's why I switched to diving. But I've always been into the flips and twists and the trampoline and the thing. Like, my body, I guess I'm like air or fire signs, and I just need to be free and floating. Like, that's what I love. And so to have this movie come out when I was at that age, fully immersed in these activities, was everything, and still is. Like, I still live when I watch this movie. Can I say it's like held up thematically? Yes. Language wise, like, there's definitely a lot of homophobic language. Like, you hear the F word a shit ton, and yet the character who is gay, like, can't even say they're gay. He says, "I'm controversial," which is so the year 2000 to me. But yeah, it's also very fat phobic. There's like, it's just like, wow, I grew up in such a fat phobic time. Like, now it's almost like cool or in fashion, to have like a big butt and like round curves and juicy and thick and like all of this stuff. There was none of that when I was a teenager. Like, just none at all. So yeah, this movie definitely does reflect that. But I would say that it's super campy and super gay and super feminist as well. So I'm going to give you like some plot points because the plot is great. And also, I think before the film Get Out from Jordan Peele in 2016, we didn't interrogate race, okay? We would like tell stories, like tragic black stories, or there would be storytelling that was fairly diverse, okay, quote unquote diverse ethnically. But when it comes to like really examining race, like, it just wasn't really a thing. But what I love about this movie is it does show sort of the black experience in like East Compton. It's like the team East Compton Clovers juxtaposed with this Rancho Carne Toros. Okay, it's also really funny what you notice as an adult, because Rancho Carne, like, when I was 11 or 12, I didn't know carne meant meat in Spanish, but knowing like how campy this movie is and stuff, I'm sure the writers were like, let's make it Rancho Carne, because this movie is like, about like like gayness and like, I don't know. I think there's a joke in there. So you do get this, and it's not like it focuses equally on the stories of, they definitely use the East Compton Clovers as like a device to kind of like push the plot of like the white cheerleading team, and their captain, like that story forward. But I still appreciate how it's done. So essentially what happens is there is we're in high school, even though all the actors are like in their late 20s, and one of them is about to become the captain of the cheerleading squad. What happens is there is someone who moves in from out of town. This is Eliza Dushku. I think she stars in like True Blood and became like a very famous actress after this. So this is one of her early roles as well. And Cliff something is the other guy. They cast them so well because they look just like brother and sister. But these two, they have rich parents and they've moved around a lot. And so they come to the high school and they're like the outcasts in the high school. And so it's Missy and Cliff. Oh yeah, Cliff can't be his actual name. I don't know what his actual name is, but so Missy ends up joining the squad like contentiously because the other members are like, not with it. And they just like call her different names for lesbian. It's just, I don't know. And then oh yeah, and so once she joins the squad, she sees their routine. She's like, "Oh, this is ripped off from the East Compton Clovers." So already black people are getting ripped off. So I'm like, okay, this lines up. And so they go to see the one of their games, one of their basketball games, and the Clovers are like doing the routine, and Torrance, that's Kirsten Dunst's main character. She's the one who just became captain of the cheerleading squad of the Rancho Carne Toros. She is just gobsmacked. She is like, oh shit, like the former leader was cheating and now I have to make this right. So one of the best scenes is so Gabrielle Union plays Isis, and there was this like group, this like pop group called Black, spelled Blaque, and like two of the members play like two of the Clovers. So it's so funny and fun, and they have their like R&B song incorporated into the film. It's great. So they come out because the former captain used to come and videotape the practices, and then she would just learn them and teach that to her squad. And so they come out being like, you better not be ripping us off again. And they were like about to, like, they come out with the heat. And Gabrielle Union is just so fierce without being aggressive. Like, she's very poised, and like everything she says is just like so assured. And I love it. I love it so much. So yeah, they're basically like, you better not continue to steal our shit. And she's like, now that I'm captain, like I got this, And so it's great. Then they end up needing to learn a new routine. Torrance goes to her boyfriend, who also was on the cheerleading squad, and he gives her this name of this guy, Sparky Pilastri, and he's like this random rip-off dude who like comes in teaching everyone up and down the coast like the same routine or whatever, and they show him like popping pills, and it's like a dark moment, but she tried. And so when they get to the competition, and they had formally ripped off the East Compton Clovers, this time as they're being interviewed on TV or whatever, they hear the song that Sparky taught them for their routine being played. So they end up doing the same exact routine as another team who had that routine. So it's just hysterical. It's great. Like the plot and like the way everything goes in this film is just so classic and good. And so they're screwed. Then they have to, scrap everything and learn a brand new routine and all of that stuff. And East Compton Clovers, they struggle with the money. There's a moment where, Torrance asks her dad if he can write a check for them so that they can go. And so a little bit of like white solidarity, but Torrance goes to give Isis the check and she rips up the check and like throws it in her face and is like, we do not need your white money. And so it's really sweet. They like write to a local like talk show personality who helps send them to the competition. And this movie is so great. Not only is like the choreography and like the cheerleading routines and stuff super fun, but it's just a great movie. It really is. And even though they use the F word and like dyke and like all, like I don't know, it's very very high school and very 2000. There are all these jokes like at first the football players make fun of the male cheerleaders, for cheerleading, but the cheerleading team wins all the awards and the football team kind of sucks. And then there's a moment where one of the football players later on in the film like sees one of the male cheerleaders like stretching out one of the female cheerleaders and is like, maybe we should join the squad. and it's like really cute, like those little moments. Any sort of queerness like represented in film, I appreciate, because it wasn't a thing back then. Like we didn't have Call Me by Your Name or was the L Word even on TV during 2000? I don't know. It's just very like untapped territory still, it feels. And so at that time, and so Bring It On, such a fun movie. So like if you want to just let all the bullshit melt away and not give a fuck and stuff, it's great. It was great. So I haven't seen any of the other Bring It On films. I know that there are some, but I am just so loyal to this one. It's hard to move forward. And Gabrielle Union, so good. The only other role of hers that I like this much, shoot. I mean, I love Being Mary Jane, but I was going to say Deliver Us from Eva. I'll have to talk about that at some point because such a good film. But yeah, Bring It On fit all of my like young, active, like campy, athletic, needs. And it's a really dope movie. So it also focuses on like young women who are badasses and like leaders. So I know it's cheerleading, but there's still a lot of good shit to take from that movie. So definitely hit me up if you end up rewatching. It was a hoot. Let's move on to the outro. Hey, listen, sometimes you gotta check in with yourself. All right, so to close it out, I want to talk about a few things. It's just so wild coming back. My mom and I are back in Berlin after, we were here for like a week and a half in May, but we left mid-September. So September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 5, 10. Yeah, so it's been 10 months. And wow, when you like come back to the same spot, a different spot as you were 1 year ago, it's great because you have like for me, I move around so much. Sometimes it's hard to remember what happens where, but to be back here and to be in a different headspace is like wow. And it's been there. I had a lot of people around me who became toxic energies, and I had to let them go. And so while it is quiet, it is also like there's so much peace and joy. And it took a while, like right before, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, that I went to the hospital and my eye was like fucked up, and that was right before the trip. And once we got here, there was like some bullshit to go through, and the jet lag hit me so hard. I think it was the hardest jet lag has ever hit me, and it was just so difficult to function like a normal person during daylight hours. And it's just weird. It's just so weird when you're in that space, and you're also in pain, dealing with my endometriosis, and I've got some muscle stuff going on. So it's been great to take it pretty easy this first like week or so. And this weekend it was difficult, but I said no to gigs, and I said no to some appointments, and I wanted to go re-record Queer POC because I'm super excited about this track and I want to like finish it and put it out there. But I woke up on the day that I was supposed to go, and I just was feeling so terrible. And I was really proud of myself. I just called them up, canceled the reservation, and really like cleared the weekend, like made space for me and my mom, and just like recalibrating. And so I'm really having some great revelations. I'm also still reading The Power of Now. I don't know if I mentioned this either, but this is, it is so good. I recommend it to anyone who struggles with mental health issues and trauma. I think it's so difficult to shake or to release ourselves from like what we carry day to day, like the things that live in our bodies, that we're sometimes not even aware of, are so strong, like such strong presences. And so sometimes I'll feel super depressed and I don't know why, it won't make sense to me. Sometimes it's just something that I'm not seeing, but sometimes it just feels like it's so deep and I have to like dig to get to the bottom of it. But this Eckhart Tolle book, and I totally was inspired by Kendrick Lamar, like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kendrick Lamar album, and RuPaul, because he talks about this all the time on his podcast, to go out and buy this book. But yeah, it's so great. And I'm already into the ideas of Buddhism. I already meditate. So in Buddhism, there's the attachment and the aversion and the middle path. And so you're aiming to just be on the middle path and like stay with your breath and be present the whole time. If you're averse to something, like if you don't want something, if you show feelings of like negativity towards something, that means that you're not staying grounded. You're not like staying present. And if you're showing attachment to something, it's another way of not staying completely present. And so basically The Power of Now is very, very similar. It's like if you're miserable, you're probably thinking about the past or the future. And if you can be present, then you're probably going to be pretty peaceful. And yeah, and like the anxiety seems to be more like the future stuff, and the depression seems to be more like the past stuff. but just having sat with those things for so many years, and feeling like there are things that feeling like there were answers that I couldn't figure out, made me feel so unhappy. And now that I'm coming back around to this spiritual way of being that is like, just stay with the present, be like a 3-year-old who just is completely where they are, like they're not like worrying about the future. No, they're like sipping on their juice box and like whistling, or I don't know, can 3-year-olds whistle? I don't know. But just uh, taking it back, slowing it down. I saw a parent walking with a child the other day, and they were walking so slowly. I mean, it was like a baby who could barely walk, and of course he had some sort of toy in his hand, big ass toy. And I was just thinking, wow, you have to slow it down so much for kids. Like, you have to really just get on their level. And so I'm thinking about kids, I'm thinking about children, I'm thinking about my own kid, my own inner kid, and just slowing it down for her and making things more manageable, not rushing her, not whatever. And another thing that I've been thinking a lot about is being an artist in this day and age. It's like, if you already struggle with mental health issues, social media is like the worst. It really is. Even just for concentration, like the amount of times I open Instagram with something very specific, a very specific task to do, and end up going somewhere completely differently, and then closing down the whole app and forgetting what I even went on there to do anyway. Or like when I write messages or do things, like, it's just difficult to manage. And when you expect a lot from yourself, and then other people's expectations are put on top of that, it just feels so unmanageable, especially with mental health issues. So I'm going the other way. I already know to do this. I already know rest is resistance. I already know some of these principles, but I'm really letting go of a lot. Like, instead of forcing myself to do shit, I'm just not doing it. And I think, like, I was looking back at my inner child journal from 2 years ago when I started it, and in there, one of my like fears or triggers is like not feeling like I'm doing enough, and if I won't do it, who will, and like this kind of thing. Who gave me responsibility? Just because you feel that way as a child because your parents aren't happy and stuff does not mean that you have to carry that for the rest of your life. And I feel like even when I go to performances, sometimes I feel like I need to give extra by way of like cheering or clapping or whatever, because I know what it took for that person to like do that thing. And so like I have to let them know. But I'm really starting to let go of this. I'm really starting to let go of the pressure and the expectations, and just accept where I'm at on the journey. I'm not that person who started with a band or started going to the same open mic again and again and again and like honing my skills. I just kind of got thrown into things in 2016, and then kind of again in 2018, and then from 2019 like more regularly. And now I've made a little bit of space for myself here in Berlin as an artist, and as a queer artist, and an artist in hip hop, or an artist who cares about Black people and queer people and people of color and marginalized folks, disabled folks. Like, I don't know. I think people are starting to really understand like what I'm about. And I feel like sometimes I put all this pressure on myself for the performance, but it's like, just being who I am is enough. And I used to measure myself up to people with like 9-to-5 jobs or people who are in different lives than me. And it makes no sense to do that. My friend from Sounds of the South, Sam Carlos, says artists are cultural workers. And I'm starting to view myself that way. Even though I can technically create a song in like 1 week, does not mean that I should be doing that every single week. It's really like music for me has always been about like, if I have something to say, I say it and then I deliver it. And slowly my performance, my show, my all that stuff is getting better and better. I feel like I could rehearse 100 times more and do this, do that, make more music, blah, blah, blah. But that's the cycle. That's the hamster wheel. Because it is so open-ended, you can put all the pressure and expectations on yourself. And I think the coolest thing that I've done is to really slow down, focus on my health this year, not focus on music and what other people maybe want from me. And I think there's a lot of power in doing that. So I'm really looking forward to the performances that I already have lined up this summer, and any like further progress that I make with my set and with my music and all of that stuff is great, but I'm simply not asking myself to do it this year, and I'm enjoying myself so much more. Like today we went to Bear Pit Karaoke. It was so fun. It's like not far from where we live, and it was like, I have to, not like I have to go out more, but I have to just like relax, I have to put the weight down, put it down, and just be lighter. So yeah, I definitely feel the gifts of being in the Berlin rhythm once again. And also I'm so proud of the changes that I'm making. It's not to say I don't still like have breakdowns and depressive episodes or get anxious or yada yada, but just starting to learn how to create more healthy situations for myself. And it feels really good. Let me know if any of this resonates with you, if you are also an artist, if you also feel pressure, if you also feel like your ideas are so endless and there's so much to do. And let me know if you're able to let that go. Okay, that's going to wrap up episode number 21. And wishing everyone a wonderful summer. I know I mentioned we're doing a little slower output, but I love doing this podcast. It's really very special for me, and I love the Patreon. I'm in a good place this week. So I hope you get some of that from me. I hope you feel some of that good energy, and I will see you next time.
I've been in low power mode, in low power mode, been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low, I've been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear.